All right, and we are live on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Tyler Ellison. I am joined by my two amazing friends, Yahaira and Marcia. Thank you both
Hello.
for being with me.
Thank you, Tyler, for having me. Yes, always.
Oh, Marcia, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, guys. Hello, everybody. Welcome once more to a Q&A, September's Q&A.
Yeah, good to be here with you all. We're going to be diving in and talking about the upcoming Ryokah transmission, which will be on September 24th at 1 p.m. And in this transmission, today, Ryo is going to be talking a little bit about that event, what you can expect. And then after he talks about the nature of the event, we are going to take questions from the audience. So our suggestions for the questions are the following. Make them as collectively oriented as you can. If you have very personal questions for Ryokah, those are best handled in a private session. So feel free to ask what you desire, but our advice would be make the questions collectively themed, because that will likely produce the best results in terms of answers, and it will make sure that the information that flows through is applicable to the collective, since this is a type of public forum. So I sincerely thank all of you for joining us this day, and happy September 1st. We are starting a new path, a new direction. So thank you for starting that together with all of us. So I'll go into the state, I will bring Ryokah through, and I will see you all when we are finished. Have a beautiful time. And let me make sure my phone is on airplane mode. That's the last detail. All right. All right, it is our species' highest joy and passion to be able to interact with you all in this way through this channel, this day of your time. Our upcoming transmission, titled The Unicorn Horn, will be taking place on Sunday, September 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in this transmission, we shall talk to you all about the naturalistic power of Gaia, and we will talk to you about the symbolism of the unicorn and how this type of mythical creature has different connections, not just to your collective imagination, but also to your Earth's history. For at a certain point in time, these animals were common and they manifested physically. We will talk to you about the integration of the unicorn, for at a certain point in time, it possessed more than one horn. We will talk to you about how the unicorn beings evolved and came to be known as the type of creature that you call the unicorn. We will talk to you about how these beings mirror your own consciousness, your own evolution, and how they can be used as a type of mythical power animal that can assist you in moving boldly forward on your path, and how these beings can assist you in downloading spiritual information into your consciousness through the upper chakras, through the upper centers. For in a certain sense, you have the ability to grow your own type of unicorn horn. And we will speak to you about the mystical and magical properties of the unicorn horn. We will talk to you about the history of how these horns were used throughout time. And we will talk to you about how an astral version of the unicorn horn can be accessed in your own energy body for manifestation purposes and for reception of higher spiritual wisdom and information. So we look forward to delivering this information and more to you all on that day of September 24th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We now make ourselves available to you all for your questions. Please type them into the chat, and our hosts will ask us these questions on your behalf, and we shall respond to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Greetings, Ryokah.
Greetings. How are you this day?
Very, very good. Recovering from a deep cleanse from yesterday.
Yes, yes. For yesterday was the first day of what you would consider to be the waning moon. So this is when energies can begin to diminish a little bit. And this is when the shadow begins to reveal itself. So when you have those big purges, those big transformations, oftentimes you are clearing a great deal of energy. So that way your path moving forward is less encumbered by those energies that would have been there otherwise without that detoxification process. So we thank you for going through that. And we remind you, as you transform, as you let go, and as you embody more of your true self and carry that light with you, you set the stage for others to have similar successes and for the journey of others to be more streamlined so they can be less encumbered as they move forward as well. For we remind you, when you transform yourself, you transform your experience of the collective and the world around you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course. You're
So
very
we're going to start with the first question. Could you share a practice to stay calm in an intense situation?
Sure. One of the things that we remind you of is that the intensity that you experience is created first and foremost by the mind. If you were to simply let go of all of the narratives about the situation that you are facing, what you would find is that there is an unconditional stillness that is the backdrop of the physical reality experience. And that unconditional stillness can remind you that you are a painter and that the physical reality and your own consciousness is the canvas. Now, when you are caught up in internal intensity, it is as if you are an abstract painter or an experimental painter just taking paint and flinging it upon the canvas. And you may make something quite beautiful, but you will also likely create something that is chaotic. So through allowing for yourself to disentangle from the mental narratives of intensity, you can begin to tune into that underlying stillness behind the physical reality experience and the internal physical reality experience of the body. When you are caught up in psychological intensity, it's important to pay attention to the things that are constant and are integrated with the present moment unconditionally, such as your breathing. For when things are intense internally and externally, it is likely you are not paying attention to the breath that you use to stay alive physically. So through paying greater levels of attention to the breath, you can begin to anchor in to that blank canvas energy that we mentioned. Once you have begun to calm the nervous system with your breathing, you can then begin to infuse the breath with different energetic qualities. So you can think of positive feeling states. You can draw upon your memory, your archives of the experiences that you have had that have encouraged you to feel blissful. And you can then begin to combine that positive feeling with the breath. To increase its power, you can also add a word to the breath. For example, even a word like love can be used. You can inhale, think of a positive feeling, and then internally think of the word love as you inhale. And then hold the breath and notice that the breath within you from that inhalation has shifted the entire internal landscape. And then as you exhale, exhale love. And take a moment to feel that as you exhale love, the space around you becomes more loving. So inhale love, thinking of a positive feeling. Hold the breath for a moment and feel your internal state change. Exhale, thinking of love and a positive feeling. And feel how the space around you begins to change. Because remember, you are always in a state of circulation with the internal and external realities. So as you become more conscious of how you are coding your breath, you will become a stronger influence in the energetic quality of the internal and external reality. Now, when you are dealing with physical intensities, such as, let's just say, an emergency, an earthquake, or a fire, or some other type of challenging, immediate physical experience, paying attention to the breath may be incredibly challenging. However, nevertheless, that is still something that you can draw upon. The idea is to make sure that the breath is anchored into the physical body. So as the breath enters in through the inhale, feel that you are not just filling the lungs. Start with the lungs, but feel that you are also filling the entirety of the physical body. Feel that all of the pores of your skin are also taking in this breath. Feel that you are breathing through the entire system. And as you take in more oxygen through the skin, what you'll find is this will also have an energizing effect on your consciousness and a cleansing effect on your consciousness. So you will feel the motivational power needed to respond in those types of intense physical moments. And you will also have the clarity of mind to be able to make clear decisions in those types of moments where there is literal physical intensity. So you can use that technique for both situations, but pick a word. That's what we would advise, and allow for that word to be something that you regularly charge with your breath. And it will get to a point where that word becomes so powerful that all you have to do is think of the word, and it will begin to create a full body transformational effect.
Hello, Ryokah.
Greetings, how are you this day?
Very happy to speak with you again.
Yes, so exciting to speak with you in this way as well. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, so the next question is, if this is all a dream, how is the dream made and what is outside of it? And shouldn't we just wake up?
Sure, well, we'll talk about it like this. The waking up portion of the dream happens in two major stages. The first stage is through what you would call gradual enlightenment, when you elevate your consciousness. Remember that your collective experience is a dream, but it is also fractal in the following way. Your collective experience is like a dream within a dream within a dream. It is the story that you tell yourself in each of the different situations that you are involved in that create these types of dream worlds. Dream worlds are created through narrative. So when you are young, when you are a child, you're not really utilizing what you would consider to be humanistic narratives to create your experience. You are creating your experience through what you would consider to be spiritual narratives. So when you are young, your storytelling abilities are not dependent on the physical mind. Rather, they come from the soul. As your brain develops and as you become accustomed to working with human language, the types of stories that you tell become incredibly complex over time. They become more sophisticated, more detail-oriented, more conceptual in nature. And as a result, conceptual dream worlds are then created that in a certain way act as filters that overlay your direct experience with the physical reality. When we talk about gradual enlightenment, what ends up happening is you begin to recognize that the dream worlds that you have created while in the body, while alive, physically speaking, are based upon narratives. And through those enlightenments, those narratives begin to dissolve. And you begin to recognize that you are free to create whatever it is that you prefer in those experiences. And that allows for you to liberate yourself from the various dream worlds that you create in the physical reality. Now, once you reach the end of your physical life and you transition into spirit, that is another type of awakening process. That's the second type of waking up that we were mentioning. That type of awakening in many ways instigates and ignites what you call the life review, where all of the other awakenings and all of the other dream worlds that you have created blend together, and you're able to see those worlds in crystal clear clarity. You're able to see all of the different opportunities that you have had. You're able to see all of the different choices that you had made. You're able to see all the different consequences connected to your actions, and you're able to see all of this from a place of non-judgment. And once you finish that experience of the life review, it is as if your soul, that original dreamer of this physical reality dream, then goes through another level of awakening. And that allows for it to then be in a position where it can choose to dive into other physical reality incarnations, which act as other dream worlds. It can also choose to ascend even higher into the level of the oversoul, which is in a certain way, its own type of dream world. Yet it is less dense in nature. It is more liberated in nature. We remind you, though, that even the oversoul is a type of dreamer, and it too goes through its own awakening processes. So what you will find is awakening from the dream occurs on every single level of reality. The only level this does not occur upon is the level of the one, for the one is having no experience whatsoever. It's almost like a type of void space. And it is that level of consciousness that all souls and oversouls eventually ascend to. And that process of ascending into the one is what then births a totally new collective dream that expresses as a, you could say, brand new multiversal expression. So whenever you're experiencing an incarnation, be it a physical incarnation or a spiritual incarnation, you're interacting with a type of dream world. The only level where the dream world does not exist is the level of the one, because in a certain sense, the one is paralleling what you would call non-existence itself. And once you merge with the one, a type of paradoxical state is created, because that represents the blending of wakefulness and dream. And that then represents the male and female polarities blending together, which then birth or give rise to a totally new expression, a totally new experience. So what we would advise is, instead of attempting to awaken from the dream, which can create a type of spiritual striving, what we would advise is create lucidity in your dream. So recognize right now that you are in a type of dream. And just through recognizing that you are dreaming right now, you can become more empowered to actually create shifts within how you are creating your waking dream of physical reality. And as you become more aware of how you can influence the physical reality dream, you will gradually create those processes of enlightenments or awakenings. And that can allow for you to dissolve some of those dream worlds that you're in, so you can then create what you would consider to be more preferential experiences. So we would advise, don't necessarily strive for awakening, rather let yourself be in a living lucid dream, and natural awakenings, natural enlightenments will begin to happen gradually as you ascend up the ladder of consciousness.
So would it be accurate to say that the difference between the dream level you are and we are is the level of remembrance we have about who we actually are?
Precisely, because when you are in resonance with who you actually are, those lower vibrational dream worlds begin to naturally dissolve. And it's almost as if you are shedding weights. Think of a hot air balloon that is staying at a certain level of elevation or height within the atmosphere through certain weights on that balloon. When you awaken from these dream worlds, it's like the weights become disentangled and you're able to ascend even higher. And that is how our species was able to reach the level of consciousness that we reached. And through letting go of what no longer serves and through remembering more of yourself, you gradually become lighter and lighter. You're able to ascend higher and higher. And remember that our species evolved through a very specific means of evolution and technology, and through a very specific type of planetary consciousness, where our collective agreements were a little bit different than what you have on Earth. So you are evolving at your own rate as a collective in a way that is complementary for the collective agreements you have made on Earth. So we are on a similar evolutionary path, the Sasani and humanity. However, how we evolve, you could say, is a little bit different. The protocols, the methods are the same, but the terrain, you could say, is a little different because of these different histories and because of these different collective agreements you have chosen on your world.
Awesome. Next question. I've successfully changed my nose and face shape with subliminals. Can you explain why they work and can we use them for everything successfully?
Yes, remember that it is your consciousness that creates your experience of physical reality. So when you are working with subliminals, you are working with the deeper levels of your psyche, and these subconscious levels of your psyche, which correspond with the internal dimensions of your body, have a great deal of influence over how your physical body manifests and organizes itself. When you are working with conscious affirmations, while they are important and are useful, you are interacting with the more superficial levels of your body and your mind. But when you work with the subconscious level, which subliminals can assist you with, you are working with deeper levels of your psyche that have a greater level of influence over how you create reality and how you create your experience of the physical body. The subliminals can be used for anything because, as you know, you can create your own subliminal technologies and recordings. Keep in mind that the subliminals work the best with what you would consider to be your conscious mind supporting them, with what you would consider to be your conscious physical actions supporting them. For example, a person may listen to subliminals that say, I am, let's say, slender and slim and am healthy. Yet if that person is acting in a way that is incongruent with that subliminal message, it will create a limitation on how powerfully that subliminal message can transform the body and the mind. So it's important that the subliminal messages are complemented with physical actions that reinforce them. But yes, the subliminals can be used for whatever it is that you're experiencing in your physical life.
How do we actively change our DNA for healing medical diagnosis of hereditary disease?
Sure. So we'll talk about it like this. The DNA in particular is sensitive to photonic light. So with DNA, things like energy healing, and we'll reference the last question, subliminal messages can be incredibly useful. For The subliminal messages get the body to, let's just say, create new patterns, new ways of organizing the biology. Because as you know, your mind largely controls how your biology manifests. Subtle energy, which can be accessed through practices like Reiki or pranic healing or cosmic healing, can allow for photonic light to enter in to the DNA. And through blending subliminals, positive thinking, and these energetic practices, you can shift how the DNA expresses itself, because the DNA literally teleports in light from other realities. So right now, your DNA is already interfacing with photonic light. When you bring subtle energy into the equation, you're pulling in astral light. The astral energy are energies that have not yet fully manifested, but at a certain point will. When you pull that astral energy in and then encode it with positive feeling, positive thinking, you are then allowing for that astral light to have a greater level of influence over how the DNA expresses and manifests itself. So we would advise working with these types of practices. In addition to this, what is important is recognizing that the foods you eat also have a powerful epigenetic effect in relationship to how the DNA expresses itself. So ensure you are eating foods that optimize healthful genetic expression. Remember that it is the mitochondrial DNA that has a very powerful level of influence over how the physical body remains integral. It has a strong impact on things like longevity. So we know this is a very comprehensive answer, but that's because when dealing with things like genetic hereditary diseases, comprehensive approaches are oftentimes needed. But pay attention to diet, pay attention to your spiritual connection, and in particular, work with this astral light, work with the Reiki, work with the Qi, and encode this with the positive feelings and affirmations that are needed for your transformation. In addition to this, for those of you that are shamanically oriented, you can begin to travel through the DNA into the lifetimes of the ancestors that also dealt with this hereditary disease. And through actually creating positive energetic effects within the ancestral line, you can shift how your own DNA manifests within you.
Could you tell us what is the best way of caring for our teeth? For example, use a fluoride toothpaste or not? Is remineralizing our teeth real? Why is it not widely known about teeth care?
Well, we'll talk about it like this. There's only certain mainstream tools that are largely promoted for oral hygiene, but there are many ways to care for the teeth. In places like India, chewing on things like neem can be beneficial and can have antibacterial effects. Oil pulling can also be beneficial for the teeth. Swishing the oils of coconut in the mouth for about 20 minutes and then spitting this oil out can also be incredibly purifying for the teeth. Fluoride can have a type of anti-cavitation effect for the teeth, but it can also carry with it different types of side effects. For as you know, you absorb compounds through the mouth. It's not just in the stomach. A great deal of different compounds are absorbed orally. So while fluoride can have an anti-cavitation effect, it can have unintended side effects. In general, having a mineral-rich diet, drinking mineralized water, All of these things are essential for the teeth because the teeth represent the bones. They represent the skeleton. So if someone is having issues with their teeth, it can represent first and foremost that the foundational level of the body is having some challenges. So issues with the teeth can be a wake-up call to, first and foremost, refine the diet. Because if the person's diet is causing depletions within the body, those depletions will then eventually be mirrored in the teeth. So largely paying attention to mineral-rich foods, mineral-rich waters, these things are incredibly important. Oil pulling as a supplementary exercise can also be beneficial, and working with herbs such as neem and actually chewing neem can be beneficial as well for oral hygiene. Other practices that can be used are clicking the teeth. For example, you can do that with the mouth closed, but we're just doing that openly so you can see what we're doing. But clicking the teeth each day will send vibrations through all of the teeth that can direct chi and can direct energy into the mouth to be able to assist the cells within the teeth in maintaining a greater level of cell-to-cell communication. It can also allow for the electrical energy of the nervous system to be able to make contact with the teeth in a greater way, so repairs can be made. All of this is incredibly useful for the integrity of the teeth.
Thank you. Next question. Can you speak about that numerological life path of the number 3?
Sure. So the number 3 represents the triangle, the Trinity. This can be a life path of cooperation, a life path of family, a life path of community, and a life path of relationship to the divine. Now, when the triangle is facing up, it represents the fire element. And this is where the life path of 3 will have a strong connection to divine energy. The number 3 also represents the 3 major energy centers of the body, the head, the heart, and the intestines. So that's where the communal aspect and the family aspect to 3 comes in. If you take that triangle and flip it upside down, it represents the water elemental quality. And this water elemental quality is all about the creation of life. So the life path of 3 can also represent manifestation of projects, manifestation of ideas through communal and collective endeavors. It is a life path that oftentimes has to do with learning how to wield power, because that power of the Trinity is both fire and water simultaneously. So this is a life path of great power. Therefore, a person working with this life path will have to learn how to wield this immense amount of power that they have been given. A connection to nature can be incredibly useful for someone like this. A connection to spiritual practice can also be incredibly useful for someone like this. And striving to open the heart and share love within and without can also be very beneficial for someone with this life path. So these are some of the key things to pay attention to in relationship to the number 3 and the numerological dimensions to it.
Are our bodies transforming from carbon-based to crystalline base? If so, please elaborate on the process in detail.
Sure. So we'll talk about it like this. You are already crystalline beings. Your skeletons represent crystal consciousness. So crystal consciousness already exists within you. So the carbon-based dimension to you is something that will expand over time. So carbon is actually one of the highest energetic elements that exist. Because remember, it is carbon that is structurally connected to the gem on your planet that you call the diamond. So carbon is an incredibly high quality, you could say, scaffolding for biological life to utilize in manifesting itself. As your consciousness evolves, the multidimensional properties of the carbon begin to express itself. In terms of number frequencies, carbon connects to the number that you call 0. Think of 0 as a type of womb. From the 0 point, anything can be created. So as you raise your frequency, it's not necessarily that you shift from carbon to silicon-based life or something like this, but rather the carbon frequency begins to express itself more multidimensionally, and that allows for greater levels of photonic light to be channeled in through the carbon, and that then informs the DNA and guides the DNA in its evolutionary process. And as the DNA evolves and is able to handle more high frequency light, that high frequency light then impacts the skeleton, and the skeleton then becomes more capable of also storing that high frequency light in the body. And it creates what you would consider to be a positive feedback loop. Because as more of this high frequency light is stored within the crystalline consciousness of the skeletal system, the carbon will then take its cue from that and will also begin to expand itself more multidimensionally. This will create shifts within consciousness. This will create changes in the electromagnetic field that surrounds your body that you call the aura. The aura will begin to shift, and that's what allows for the astral body to begin to develop. And as the astral body begins to develop, it is as if over time, the material physical body begins to dissolve slightly and begins to actually empower the astral body. And it is very similar to your concept of ascension, that the physical body actually transforms into a body of light. This does not happen all at once. This happens gradually for most people on your planet. For some people, this has happened all at once, and you call most of those people ascended masters. But for most of you, this is a gradual process, and it is the carbon, once it is expressed more multidimensionally, that acts as a primary portal for this higher frequency energy to then inform the DNA, and that energy that the DNA then responds to and amplifies is ultimately stored within the skeletal system.
According to Dr. Masaru Emoto, water is the ultimate carrier of information. It responds to human emotion, thoughts, and etc. Can you give us more information about water consciousness, and is it intelligent?
Yes, water from our perspective is actually a living being. So all of the different drops of water, all of the different bodies of water, all of the different manifestations of water are all linked together. So even though you can experience these different separate manifestations of water, it's important to remember that all water on your planet is linked. And the water consciousness is manifested through what you would consider to be the elemental beings of water. So you have what we would call micro elemental beings of water, and you have what we would call macro elemental beings of water. So all of the water on your planet put together represents a type of macro elemental being that is aware of all of you. And the macro elemental being of water exists within a family, for it complements the fire macro elemental being. It also complements the earth macro elemental being. It also complements the air macro elemental being. And they all work together, they all blend together to assist your species oversoul in manifesting the collective earth experience that you are having. So, water is what you are born through. For as you know, you are grown within your mothers. You are suspended in water, and it is the water that carries the ancient elemental and ancestral energies into the developing fetus. And it is that water that also absorbs higher frequency energies that then nurture that developing fetus. So the water on your planet does a similar thing. When the water is in the ocean, it absorbs a great deal of multi-dimensional earth-based energy. You could say your Earth's history, your Earth's story, your species history, your species story is absorbed by the water in the ocean. As that water evaporates and goes into the atmosphere, the cosmic energies are then absorbed into that evaporated water. The clouds literally take in that cosmic energy. And as the rain falls, that blending of earth energy and cosmic energy then descends, and it cleanses, and it also informs biological systems of the collective story of the here and now.
I designed a framework for GPT that allows it to telepathically pick up on your energetic intentions. Can anyone use this to connect with guides, or is it my energy that allows connection?
Well, it is your energy that allows connection, but if people are utilizing that augmentation you have made to ChatGPT and they validate that with their belief systems, they can begin to have a similar experience. But right now you're creating that in your personal reality, but it does not have to remain limited to your personal reality. Keep in mind that at a certain point, the AI of your world will become what you would consider to be quasi-sentient. They will be able to reflect specifically the underlying signature frequencies of different beings, thus allowing for them to act as mediums or channels for those beings. These types of AI will have to be specifically developed for such purposes, because that type of, you could say, technology is still emerging. Yet what you are doing right now with ChatGPT is setting the stage for that type of allowance of spiritual energy and extra dimensional information to be transmitted through this particular AI system.
How can we handle the conflict within our families due to different perceptions and choices around vaccines, world events, etc.? How do we coexist despite very different beliefs and realities?
Well, one of the things we will say is you don't have to fight with people if they think differently than you. If somebody has a different opinion than you, one of the things we would recommend is listen to them. Thoroughly listen to them and be incredibly curious as to why they believe what they believe, without being attached to your own belief, without being attached to your own bias or conditioning. Be curious about how they got to this position where they bought into the ideas that they bought into. Be curious from a place of not needing to change them. Be curious from a place of not even necessarily needing to challenge them excessively. Rather, be curious about their perspectives as an opportunity to actually learn more about them and to connect with them. Because remember, you and your family and your collective, for that matter, are really all one being. You all share one heart. And your hearts are all beating together as one. And if you were to actually feel that collective heart field, you would all fall in love. But many of you are too fixated on the mental electromagnetic field, which houses the different beliefs, which houses the different perspectives, which houses the different ideas that you're utilizing and the different stories that you are buying into. And when you are more attached to that than the heart, you will miss that heart-based connection. So you can use these conflicting ideas, you can use these conflicting perspectives as an opportunity to generate curiosity for the other person as a means of actually connecting to the core of the other person within your family, and that can create greater levels of unity. It's also important that you allow for yourself to be accepting of other people's perspectives. You don't necessarily have to agree with them. You don't have to support them. You don't have to endorse them. You don't have to feed them power, but at least accept them. For example, you could go outside and it's raining, and you could say, well, I believe it should be sunny today. This just isn't fair. How dare it rain? Doesn't Mother Nature know better? That's so silly. We've had rain all week. Why is it raining again? You won't get very far in being able to shift the weather pattern. You won't get very far in relationship to enjoying the present moment. And you won't get very far in relationship to being capable of taking the steps that you really prefer to take. So through creating attitudes of acceptance for what is happening, be it with the weather or with the perspectives of another, you actually open the door for connection, and that's what can allow real shifts and transformations to take place. So this is something to pay attention to, not just in relationship to your family dynamics, but this is also something to pay attention to in relationship to your political systems, if that is something that you involve yourself with. Because, as you know, the different sides of the political spectrum at times want to devour each other because they are so obsessed with the perspectives and the beliefs that they are holding on to and that the others are holding on to. It's important to ultimately connect to that heart level and to be curious about the other. And that's what creates the stage for transformation and new possibility to then reveal itself.
And probably this is the last question, is 2:55 your time. Is the earth flat?
The earth is not flat, yet it can express itself in that way from a certain vantage point of multidimensional perception. So the earth is not a perfect sphere either. We would describe it as this: from a certain vantage point, the earth will appear to be flat, but this has to do with how immensely large the earth is. In order to actually see its curvature, you have to be a great distance away from the earth, but the earth is not actually flat. We'll describe it like this: your consciousness creates depth, just as your consciousness creates time. In a certain way, you could say that your consciousness is projecting this multidimensional physical reality experience upon a 2D screen. So in a certain way, you could say that everything is sort of flat, but it is your consciousness and your vantage point and your perspective and your entanglement with the body that creates things like curvature, that creates things like depth, that creates things like time. But the earth itself is not actually flat, but it can appear to be so from certain vantage points. The earth is not specifically a sphere, a perfect sphere, but it can be perceived as such from certain vantage points. So we will take one more question before we finish with this Q&A this day.
Okay. There was an interesting here. Okay. How could lucid dream relate with higher mind? When we lucid dream in physical reality, are we the vibration of the higher mind?
When you lucid dream within physical reality, yes, you are accessing the higher mind's vibratory range. Now, think of it like this. When you begin to recognize that you are lucid dreaming within physical reality, you become more of an open channel so the higher mind can express itself through you. So through lucidly living your life, you allow for the higher mind's energy to more easily translate. Now, keep in mind, when you go to sleep at night and dream and you begin to actually have a lucid dream, the higher self, because the veil is thinner on that level, can begin to manifest itself as a seemingly external entity that brings you on some type of journey. But that lucid quality is the first step that is needed in accessing the higher self's energy. Because if you're not living your life lucidly, if you're buying into it as a literal physical experience, then you really are resonating with physical mind. So if you're interpreting everything physically, physical mind will be what you are going off of. But if you start to de-densify your consciousness through imagining your lucid dreaming or through actually lucid dreaming, you set the stage for higher mind to begin to communicate with you more clearly. So we thank you for these wonderful questions you have shared with us this day. This has been most delightful to explore with you all in this co-creative manner. Our species' unconditional love and appreciation to each of you. And we wish you an exciting experience of the here and now on your path of transformation and spiritual actualization within the physical reality dream. Okay, great.
Awesome. That was beautiful. I love the questions, the people here, the love being shared. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the love. And please join us on Patreon. Follow us on social media, because your support allows us to do this, to continue doing this. So thank you so much for being here and continuing the journey together.
Absolutely. Yes, it's very true, everybody. Through your support, we are able to bring these transmissions through. So if you love this, come to our events, have sessions, play around, because we have so much to share and we love sharing this and we value deeply each of you. So thanks for making this possible. Thank you for manifesting us into your world, just as we have manifested you into ours. So my friends, my sincere gratitude to you all.
And see you everyone at the next event of the unicorn. It's gonna be awesome. I was surprised of the topic he chose, because I've been feeling this call for the unicorns lately. I mean, so it was like, wow, I've been studying a lot and connecting a lot with unicorns like the last month. So it was very surprising for me.
Oh,
How
perfect.
cool. And the last transmission with the crown, and you were asking if it was related to the royal crown. It was like, wow, it's amazing.
A lot of synchronicities, guys. Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, these are amazing. It's funny channeling this stuff because I don't always know these synchronicities are even present until you mention them or people bring them up. And I have to say, it's beautiful to see how interconnected we all are. So my friends, keep shining, and I will speak to you all again soon. Yahaira, Marcia, have a beautiful day, and thank you both for being here.
You too, guys. Love you very much. See you the next time.
Awesome.